Hi, today we're with Dr. Rodgers at the Coral Reef Ecology Lab on the Coconut Island in Kaneohe. Dr. Rodgers, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself and the facility here?
Okay, I'm an assistant researcher here at the Hawaii Institute of Marine Biology. We have quite a few buildings here, and we have mesocosms that we work with to run manipulative experiments. We've been running a lot of experiments for many, many decades here on climate change, as well as a variety of other anthropogenic impacts, such as what happens to corals under sediment stress and extra nutrification or added nutrients into the ocean. We look at coral spawning and all the different life cycles that the corals have. On our global climate change work, we have worked on bleaching, where there's a temperature rise, and now we're doing research on ocean acidification. Temperature and carbon dioxide are increasing at a phenomenal rate, and all of us know this. The thing that many of us don't know are the consequences and the dangerous feedback mechanisms that are involved. So here we try to find those out. We're trying to see how corals calcify. We did some of the first work on the Hawaiian corals, looking at how corals calcify, how much they grow under these acidified conditions. We replicate different time periods in the future, as well as the time period that we have right now, present day, PCO2, or partial pressure of carbon dioxide. These mesocosms that we have are really important because they simulate what the reef conditions would be. They're under natural light, they have natural recruitment, and so it's a really good place to run experiments that would simulate what is really going to happen in the natural environment. There's going to be winners and losers in a warmer, more acidic ocean, and it looks like corals are going to be among the losers. Algae might be among the winners. We have a lot of done work on other organisms. Things like coralline algae have shown that those will be dissolving rather than growing in more acidic oceans. Coralline algae is what cements the reefs together, and corals actually recruit onto this coralline algae, so it's a very important part of the ecosystem. Along with our experiments, we also conduct coral reef monitoring throughout the state. We started the Coral Reef Assessment and Monitoring Program, CRAMP, many years ago. It was 13 years ago now, when we had no long-term monitoring program in the state. There had just been piecemeal things done with different methodology. So we have an integrated program now. We have over 60 sites in the main Hawaiian Islands, as well as about 100 rapid assessment sites that we do. And we return to those periodically so that we can see how the reefs are changing, how they're doing over time. We also have quite a few graduate students in our lab, and each of them have a project as well. We have projects that have been funded by a variety of organizations, such as EPSCoR and with the National Science Foundation, as well as the EPA, or the Environmental Protection Agency, and many of the smaller agencies, as well as state funding as well, fund some of our projects. When we conduct our monitoring, then we can see what trends and patterns are happening throughout the state, and we can go back into a certain site and do more experiments in the field to see what's actually happening there. So one of our graduate students, Megan Ross, is looking at Maui and looking at the declines and seeing what are causing some of these declines that we're seeing in that area. We also have a graduate student working at Pelikane Bay near Kauai High on the Big Island, Yuko Stender, and she is looking at sedimentation impacts on recruitment of juvenile fish populations, as well as coral recruitment. We have quite a few other projects that are going on, and we even have a Native Hawaiian student that is looking at traditional ecological knowledge.
That's great. It sounds like that you do a whole lot of things. Sounds like you're doing a lot for the community too. A lot of people don't understand what's going on the Coconut Island here. It seems like a lot of the science and research here does benefit the community. I did have one question for you, because science oftentimes is based on grants, and sometimes it's hard to find this money. I mean, what are some of the challenges maybe that you foresee any challenges for your research in the future when it comes to research and funding?
It is getting more and more difficult to obtain funding. Oftentimes, smaller organizations will come to us for a project that they want because we're so well established and we have such a good track record, and it's really a world-renowned lab here at Hawaii Institute of Marine Biology. But we also have to put in proposals. So we spend a considerable amount of our time putting in proposals so that we can do the type of work that we feel is most important on a global scale.
Last question now. So where do you see future research?
We've done a lot of research. In fact, we did research in coral bleaching. This lab is under the direction of Dr. Paul Joe Keel, and he actually described bleaching back in the 70s, the early 70s, before we even knew what bleaching was. So we continue that work and doing the ocean acidification work, but it's also important to look at what the synergistic effects or the combined effects of those are. So right now we're looking at other organisms and what the combined effects would be. Because in the ocean, in the future, you're going to see all of those combined effects acting upon each other. And we don't know if they'll have additive effects or if it'll be more than additive and we'll have effects that might buffer one another. So that's also important to know. We also do a lot of modeling because we have so much data. We have made models that tell what the reefs are like, what condition they are, and we link them with the watersheds so that we have that full ahupua'a system like the native Hawaiians did. Because the native Hawaiians knew how important the corals were to the environment. The kumulipo, or the creation chant, first starts out with the coral being the first one to come forth or be born. And so they understood how important it was. So we want to make sure we carry on that legacy for them.
Thank you, Dr. Rodgers, and thank you for having us here today.
Thank you.